They say the witching hour is when the veil between worlds is at its thinnest. But some things don't wait for a specific time. They linger in the quiet corners of your home, in the static of a dead radio channel, in the reflection you catch from the corner of your eye. These are the stories that aren't told around campfires. They're whispered in hushed tones by those who've seen things they can't explain, things that have left a permanent chill in their bones. Tonight, we're pulling back the curtain on those encounters. These aren't your typical ghost stories. These are fragments of nightmare fuel, collected from the darkest corners of the internet and the deepest recesses of human fear. So, turn down the lights, check your locks, and tell yourself it's only a story. Let's begin. Our first story comes from a user who calls himself City Hiker. He loved exploring abandoned buildings, capturing the beauty of decay through his camera lens. One evening, he found himself in an old, derelict hospital on the outskirts of town. The place was notorious, but he'd always dismissed the rumors as local folklore. He was on the 3rd floor, in what looked like an old pediatric ward, when he heard it, a faint, rhythmic thumping. Thump, thump. It sounded like a child's bull bouncing down a long hallway. He froze, listening. The sound grew closer, echoing in the cavernous space. It cut it out, thinking maybe another urban explorer was there. The bouncing stopped. Silence. A heavy, suffocating silence. He held his breath, straining to hear anything. Then, from the far end of the hall, a tiny voice giggled. It was a child's giggle, but it was cold, empty. It seemed to slide along the walls toward him. He didn't wait to see what it was. He scrambled out of that hospital faster than he'd ever run in his life. The sound of that cold laughter chasing him all the way to his car. He never went back. He says sometimes, late at night when the house is quiet, he can still hear a faint thumping sound from his own hallway. Next, we have an account from a woman named Clara, a long-haul truck driver. She spends countless nights on deserted highways, the world outside her cab a blur of darkness and distant lights. On one particular route through the deserts of Nevada, she was feeling an overwhelming sense of fatigue. She pulled over at a desolate rest stop, the only other vehicle a rusty old sedan parked under a flickering light. As she tried to get some sleep, she felt a strange sensation, like she was being watched. She peered out her window and saw a figure standing by the sedan. It was tall and unnaturally thin, its limbs long and spidery. It was just standing there, motionless, staring directly at her cab. A wave of pure dread washed over her. She quickly started her engine, the roar shattering the silence. As she pulled away, she glanced in her side mirror. The figure was gone from its spot. A second later, her heart leaped into her throat. The figure was now standing in the middle of the highway behind her, its silhouette stark against the glow of her She floored it, not looking back again until the sun began to rise. She took a different route after that, even if it added hours to her trip. She couldn't shake the image of that impossibly thin figure standing in the road, as if it was waiting just for her. Our final story is from a young couple, Mark and Sarah, who bought their first home, a charming little fixer-upper in a quiet, rural town. They were excited, spending their weekends painting and renovating. The weirdness started subtly. Tools would go missing, only to reappear in odd places. They'd hear faint whispers that sounded like they were coming from inside the walls. They chalked it up to the house settling and their own exhaustion. One night, Sarah woke up thirsty and went to the kitchen for a glass of water. As she stood by the sink, she saw movement in the darkened living room. She thought it was Mark, but then she heard him snoring softly from their bedroom upstairs. Her blood ran cold. Standing in the center of the living room was a shadow. It wasn't a trick of the light. It was a solid, three-dimensional patch of blackness, darker than the surrounding dark, shaped vaguely like a person but with no discernible features. It didn't move. It didn't make a sound. It just was. She backed away slowly, her heart pounding, and fled back to the safety of her bedroom. They sold the house a month later at a loss, telling the realtor the commute was just too long. They never told anyone the real reason they left, afraid no one would believe them. They just knew they couldn't spend another night with the shadow that lived in their living room. What lurks in your blind spot? What sound do you dismiss as the house settling? Fear is a primal instinct, a warning that we should listen to. These stories remind us that there are still mysteries in this world, phenomena that defy our understanding. Perhaps some doors are best left unopened, and some shadows are best left undisturbed. Thanks for watching. Sleep well, if you can.